God once asked me a question: did your marriage end? And in that moment, I felt my entire chest collapse inward, because the answer was yes. Yes, God, my marriage ended. And with it, my childhood ended too. It's strange, isn't it? How one question can open a wound so deep you realize it has been bleeding for decades. My marriage was never just about a husband, or about two people signing a paper. For me, it was proof. Proof that I could belong. That I could finally build a family of my own, and keep it together the way no one kept it together for me. When my marriage collapsed, it wasn't just a divorce. It was the loss of a lifelong dream, the breaking of the only promise I ever made to myself, that I would not repeat the emptiness I was born into. My story began in chaos. My mother was 17 when she had me. My father was 20. They were practically still children, reckless, impulsive, and unprepared. I never saw them as stable figures. In fact, I often felt like I was older than they were. Their relationship was a storm. Loud fights, slammed doors, long silences filled with bitterness. So it was my father's parents who truly raised me, my abuelos. With them, life had rhythm. Breakfast at the same time every morning, bedtime stories, gentle hands leading me to school. I can still remember the way my grandmother's voice softened when she said my name, or the way my grandfather always smelled faintly of tobacco and soap. With them, I was safe. With them, I was loved. But the peace never lasted. When my parents finally separated, I was sent to live with my mother's side of the family. And there, I felt like a stranger in my own skin. My mother's family was blonde, fair-skinned, blue-eyed. They looked like they had all stepped out of the same photograph. And then there was me, darker, with features I recognized from my father's side. I didn't fit. Not in their faces, not in their culture, not in their rhythm of life. Family photos felt like proof of my difference. Gatherings felt like reminders that I was an outsider inside my own bloodline. And while I was trying to adjust to them, I was aching for my grandparents. Then came the blow I could never recover from. First, my grandfather was diagnosed with cancer. I watched the strongest man I knew weaken day by day, until he wasn't strong enough to walk me to school anymore. Then, just 1 year later, my grandmother followed the same cruel path. Within a year, the two people who gave me a sense of identity, who made me feel chosen and loved, were gone. Their deaths weren't just the loss of two people. Their deaths erased my safe place, my belonging, my family. I felt orphaned, even though both my parents were still alive. That's when the question of, who am I? Where do I belong? Stopped being abstract. It became a wound, a hole I carried into every room I entered. I didn't find shelter in my parents or in my extended family. I found it in church. My grandmother had been religious, and so was my school. Christianity gave me principles to stand on, when my family gave me none. Faith became the replacement for family. God became the parent who never left. But deep inside, another dream was being born. I didn't just want to survive. I didn't just want to belong to someone else's family. I wanted to create my own. I dreamed of being the center of a family, the mother, the wife, the matriarch. I dreamed of being the one who built the home, the one who made sure no child of mine ever felt the way I did. And here's the dangerous part. I began confusing the idea of marriage with the promise of safety. I thought the wedding itself, the dress, the cake, the photos, would prove I finally had a foundation that no one could shake. When you carry a dream that heavy, you don't fall in love. You fall into survival. My first serious relationship was with a man 10 years older than me. At the time, I thought his age meant safety. I thought maybe he could give me the protection I never had. But in truth, we had nothing in common. Our personalities collided. Our dreams didn't match. He even proposed, but the proposal felt more like an escape plan than a beginning. Later, in college, I dated someone closer to my age. We had similarities, but we also had differences that grew sharper with time. After 2 years, it ended too. Then came 4 long years of being single, 4 years of feeling like I was stuck in waiting rooms, waiting for someone to choose me, waiting for someone to see me as the answer to their own dream. By the end of those years, I was exhausted, tired of first dates, tired of hoping, tired of the echo inside me that whispered, "You are still alone. You are still unchosen." And that's when Ethan reappeared. I had first met Ethan back in 2015. He was older, magnetic, the loudest voice in every room. He drank, he charmed, he made strangers laugh within minutes. To me, he always felt like neon, bright, impossible to ignore, but also blinding. We had a brief 2-month fling back then, but I traveled abroad, and we lost touch. Then, 5 years later, during the pandemic in 2020, his name lit up my phone again. He messaged me on Instagram. He said he was single. His profile was clean, no photos of anyone else. And suddenly, we were talking all day. He sent good mornings. He asked how I slept. He checked in about work, about my friends, about my life. In the silence of isolation, his attention felt like oxygen, and I started to believe maybe this was God's way of giving me another chance. When Ethan came back into my life, everything happened so quickly it almost felt unreal. At that time, I had just moved into my very first apartment on my own. It was small, but it was mine. The first space where every object, every corner, every decision belonged to me. I felt proud, finally independent. Ethan started visiting often. At first, it was exciting. He'd show up with a smile, with stories, with energy that filled the rooms. But soon, his visits became stays, and his stays became permanents. He didn't own a car. He had a strained relationship with his parents. And with the pandemic keeping the world locked down, my apartment became his safe place too. Within a month, he was practically living with me. One day I finally said, "This isn't a vacation house. If you're going to stay every night, let's call it what it is. Move in and share the bills." So we did. At first it felt magical. We laughed, cooked, stayed up late watching shows. I thought, this is it. This is the beginning of the family I always dreamed of. But the cracks appeared sooner than I wanted to admit. A close friend of mine, who had recently canceled her own wedding, asked if she could host her birthday at my place. She had already bought sweets and balloons. It was meant to be small, joyful, healing. When she came, Ethan grew visibly uncomfortable. He frowned at the decorations. He muttered about the mess, about the noise. He snapped at her, until she cried, and I remember feeling something deep inside me break. This was my apartment, my friend, my safe place. But suddenly it felt like it all belonged to him, and I was just borrowing it. A voice inside me whispered, "This is not right." But I silenced it. I painted the red flag white. I told myself he was stressed, that he didn't mean it, that love is compromise. I had learned to do that as a child. Ignore the storm, pretend it was weather. And now I was doing it again. By 2021, his mother returned from a long trip. His family began criticizing the small studio I lived in. They called it too small and unfit for someone like Ethan. So, with their help, he bought a new apartment, a nicer building, a more polished address, and we moved there together. But that's when the dream began to rot. Suddenly, every fight ended with the same sentence. "This is my apartment. You can leave." Home became a weapon. Shelter turned into a tool of control. One night, after drinking, he locked me out at 4 a.m. I stood in the hallway shaking, calling a friend to come rescue me because my husband wouldn't open the door. I knew it was wrong. I knew it wasn't love. But after the tears, he would always apologize. First, he blamed me. "You provoked me. You pushed me to the edge." Then he'd soften. "I'm sorry. I'll never do it again." And I believed him. Again and again. Because I wanted to believe. Because I was too afraid to admit I had chosen a man who wasn't safe. We made it official on paper first. A domestic partnership with separation of assets. It was practical. His family wanted to protect their money, and I had no interest in mixing finances anyway. But the papers didn't protect my heart. Later that year, he surprised me. He took me to the mountains, dropped to one knee, and asked me to marry him. He called me princess, slid a ring onto my finger, and promised me forever. For a moment, I let myself believe I was living the fairy tale I had carried since childhood. On September 13th, 2021, we signed the marriage license. Just us. Simple, quiet. But on October 4th, I planned a small wedding lunch. Flowers, cake, a white dress, a photographer. Not extravagant, but enough to make me feel like I was finally sealing the dream. I told myself, this is God stitching the pieces of my story back together. But the threads were already breaking, and I hadn't seen it. 2 days before the wedding lunch, Ethan left for work out of town. That morning, I noticed something small but strange. His personal phone wasn't on the usual shelf. He had placed it one level higher, almost hidden. A voice inside me said, "Check it." And I did. I unlocked it, opened Instagram, and found the truth. There they were, messages with a married coworker, a woman he had always called just a friend, a woman he swore wasn't his type. The messages burned into my chest. "With you, everything feels easy. You are my favorite person. I dreamed of you all night." The day after our civil wedding, he wrote to her, "Being with you makes me question everything else." I froze. My heart stopped. The man I had just married was already living another marriage in his heart, with her. I took screenshots, because I knew without proof I'd be called crazy. I sent them to him and asked, "How could you do this? We just got married." He didn't apologize. He didn't even look ashamed. He said, "I only wanted us to have what I have with her. With her, there's no pressure. It's easy." And I wanted to scream. Of course it's easy. You don't live with her. You don't pay bills with her. You don't carry responsibility with her. He swore it was never physical, only messages. But betrayal doesn't need a bed to break your heart. So I did what he begged me not to do. I contacted her husband. I sent him the screenshots. I told her too. "I will tell him." Ethan begged, "Don't involve other people." But why should I protect their lie when mine had already exploded? That day felt like an earthquake that never ended. From morning until night, I shook. I cried until I couldn't see. I begged God for air, for strength, for some way to hold myself together. I called my family. My mom came. My uncles came. They told me, "He doesn't love you. Let's pack your things. Let's go." So instead of preparing for my wedding lunch, I was filling boxes. Piece by piece, I erased myself from that apartment. I canceled the restaurant, the flowers, the photographer, but the cake was already made. The baker delivered it with such pride, so much love, that I couldn't tell him the truth. He thought he was delivering a wedding cake. In reality, he was delivering a funeral for my dream. I carried it into my mother's house, sat on the floor, and sobbed until my chest ached. I wasn't a bride anymore. I was a divorced woman after 20 days. After everything, Ethan never once apologized. Not once. Instead, he demanded things back. Money, the ring, even the cake. He cared more about possessions than about the destruction of my soul. His family never called. His friends never asked forgiveness. I erased them all from my life. Later, I heard him tell people I had lost my mind, that I ended the marriage because I was unstable. Some even believed him. But I know the truth. And now, I share this truth not just for me, but for every woman who needs to hear it. Do not paint red flags white. Do not silence the voice inside you. Do not underestimate what a man is capable of. Because even the one who calls you princess can become the one who leaves you in ashes. The night I discovered the messages, time lost its shape. I remember walking in circles through the apartment, shaking, clutching my chest as if I could hold my heart inside before it fell out of me. I remember staring at the walls, thinking, this was supposed to be my home. How is it my prison now? I called my mother, crying so hard she could barely understand my words. I called my uncles, my cousins, anyone who could help me carry the weight. They all said the same thing. Pack your things. He doesn't love you. We will take you home. And that's what we did. While he was away, I folded my life into boxes. Each object I touched felt like betrayal. Clothes that smelled of our nights together. Dishes we had eaten from. Photos we had taken with fake smiles. Every item screamed, "You thought this was real. You were wrong." October 4th was supposed to be my wedding lunch. Instead of flowers, I had cardboard boxes. Instead of makeup, I had swollen eyes from crying. Instead of a celebration, I had silence, shame, and grief. I canceled the restaurant, the photographer, the decorations. But the cake had already been made. When the baker arrived, he handed it to me with such joy, proud of his work. I couldn't bring myself to tell him the truth. He believed he was delivering a symbol of love. In reality, he was delivering the last piece of a dream that had already died. We placed the cake in my mother's kitchen. My brother carried it gently, as though it were fragile glass. I sat on the floor beside it and sobbed. It felt almost poetic, like I was mourning at my own wedding, grieving not just a man, but the version of myself who believed in him. The days that followed were the hardest. I would wake up and for a moment forget. My body would reach for him in the bed, only to find the cold reality that he was gone. Then, like a wave crashing over me, I would remember. He betrayed you. He never loved you the way you loved him. Some mornings I couldn't breathe. I would curl up on the bathroom floor, shaking, whispering to God, "Please, please, don't let me drown in this." Grief came in waves. Sometimes I felt numb, almost normal. Other times I was hit by a tsunami, watching couples in restaurants, seeing families with children, hearing songs about love. Everything became a mirror of what I lost. I wasn't jealous. I wasn't envious. I was just broken, because what I had wanted most, what I had fought for all my life, had slipped through my fingers. In those days, I spoke to God more than ever. I told him, "I don't understand. I prayed for this family. I built this with faith. Why did you let it collapse?" And God answered me in ways that were quiet, but undeniable. He said, "You asked for a family, but not every man can give you that. What collapsed was not your destiny. It was your illusion." I argued with him. "But God, how can I ever marry again? How can I ever trust again?" And he whispered, "It was more impossible before than it is now. Before, you only had one chance, and it failed. Now you have many chances. Trust me." Those words gave me strength. Not because they erased my pain, but because they reminded me the story wasn't over. What made the healing harder was not just the betrayal, but the lies that followed. Ethan never once apologized. Not once. Instead, he demanded material things. The ring, the cake, the money. He cared more about possessions than the destruction of my soul. And worse, he told people I had lost my mind, that I had ended the marriage because I was unstable. Later I heard he even told some that I had cheated too. Imagine that. After 4 years of loyalty, of devotion, of building a life together, he rewrote the story to paint himself as the victim. It was a second betrayal, a public one, and yet I stayed silent because I knew the truth, and I knew God knew it too. Now, when I look back, I see all the signs I ignored. The first red flag, when he tried to control joy in my apartment, the way he locked me out at night, the way every argument ended with, "This is my apartment." The cycle of blame, apology, and repetition. I painted red flags white because I was too desperate for the dream. I wanted so badly to build a family that I convinced myself he could become the man I needed. But men show you who they are, early, clearly, consistently. The lesson I carry now is simple, but hard. Believe them. Believe what they show you. Don't build a castle of sand and expect it to stand against the storm. I don't miss him. I don't miss his touch. I don't miss his voice. What I grieve is the dream. But even dreams can be rebuilt if you lay them on rock, not on sand. Next time, I will not build on illusions. I will not silence my inner voice. I will not confuse a wedding for safety or a ring for loyalty. Next time, I will build on truth, with a man whose principles match mine, with someone who doesn't just call me princess, but treats me as a partner. Because love is not flowers or photos or cake. Love is presence. Love is truth. Love is daily choice. And I finally understand. I deserve nothing less.